Hello, we are going to start Summit 1B, Unit 8, page 92. Actually, we covered the first part of this unit last week, and in this part, transforming verbs and adjectives to noun. We're going to talk about nouns, and these are the suffixes that we can use them in order to make noun. Asian, tion, ssion, meant, y, and ilite, and also these are the noun suffixes. Again, nessetyanc and enc. Okay, I'm going to cover them. Let me find the box. I'm coming. Okay, I'm going to read it myself because it was not included actually. Accept, انتظار داشتن, acceptation, انتظار, explain. You see, we are adding ition at the end and we make noun. Explain, توضیح دادن, explanation, توضیح. Frustrate, frustration. Permit, permission. Develop, development. Involve, involvement. courteous, خوش رفتار بودن و مؤدب بودن. courtesy، خوشخویی، ادب، مهربانی. difficult، دشوار، difficulty، دشواری. responsible، مسئول. responsibility، مسئولیت. You see, we are adding ity in order to make noun. reliable، قابل اعتماد. reliability، اعتماد. capable، capability. dependence، dependability. disable، disability. fair, fairness. rebellious, rebelliousness. selfish, selfishness. strict, strictness. You see, we are adding ness in order to make nouns. selfish، خودخواه. selfishness، خودخواهی. generous، generosity. mature، maturity. mobile، mobility. secure، security. productive، productivity. important، importance. اهمیت داشتن، مهم بودن. importance، اهمیت. significant، significance. independent، independence. lenient، lenience. and obedient, obedience. Okay, in this part we should circle the words that are nouns and check a dictionary if you are not sure about them. dependency, which one of them are nouns؟ کدومشون اسم؟ میخوایم دورش خط بکشیم. dependency, we had it here. Dependent is the verb. Independent is the adjective. Independence is noun. Dependency is noun again. Dependency, dependent, dependence, dependent, dependency. Confidence, confident, confide, confidently. Confidence is the noun. Consider, consideration, considerate, considerately. Consideration is the noun. Different, difference, differentiate, differentiation, difference is the noun. Attraction, attract, attractive, attractiveness, attractiveness. جذابیت, ness. Look at here. ness. پس بنده NESS اسم سازه، پس متوجه میشیم attractiveness. impatient, impatience, impatiently. You see ANCE پس بنده اسم سازه. impatience اسم. unfair, unfairness, unfair, unfairly. NESS پس بنده اسم سازه، پس متوجه میشیم unfairness اسم. closeness again noun. Again happiness is noun. Listen for details. Listen to part 1 again and then complete the statement. You see, how did Remus grow up differently from his parents? Remus is going to talk about his parents. He says that how did he grow up differently from his parents? Why does Rima's father think teenagers nowadays have more problems than when they were if he was growing? I'm going to play this part and you should complete this part too. You see, he's talking, try to complete this part. Rimas grew up in which city, for example? His parents grew up in what generation? Listen, please, you're going to answer.
Page 92. Listen for supporting information. Exercise C. Listen to part 1 of a man's description of the generation gap in his family. Then answer the questions. Part 1.
My name is Rimas Vilkas and I come from Vilnius, the capital city of Lithuania. I live in
Lithuania.
Chicago now, but I grew up in Vilnius in the 80s and 90s in
He grew up in, you should write it
an
here.
apartment with my immediate family, my sister, my mother, and my father, and of course me. My parents, however, didn't grow up in Vilnius. They grew up in a small village in the east.
So they grew up in a small village in the east. You should write it here.
Both my parents came from very large families, and they both lived with their extended families when they were growing up. At that time, it was the common expectation that 3 generations would live together in a house: children, parents, and grandparents. My mother said that everyone, her 7 brothers and sisters, her parents, and her grandparents, all ate dinner together every night of the week. This kind of togetherness was pretty different from the way my family grew up. When I was growing up, my sister and I usually ate with our parents.
You see, they usually ate with their parents, just their parents.
Sometimes when they had to work, we didn't. We'd have to eat by ourselves. This may be why my father says that families were closer back
They had to eat by themselves.
then. He says there was more parental involvement in teenagers' lives. My dad thinks that closeness is the reason why teenagers had fewer problems. He says it was rare for a teenager to be a troublemaker at school. He thinks rebelliousness and disrespect are more modern teen problems. In his day, he says, that kind of disobedience would have been highly unusual.
Okay, let's go. Listen to compare and listen to part 2, then listen again and complete the chart by describing the differences between 2 generations. Now I'm going to play it for you. You should find how they are different. Rima's parents and Rima's generation. You see, when it's generation یعنی نسلی که توش هستن دیگه. The people who are at the same age. و اینم نسلیه که پدر مادرشون بودن. How they are different, their jobs, their mobility, their culture, how they are different. You should write it here. Listen please, part E. 25.
Page 92. Listen for details. Exercise D. Listen to page 93. Listen to compare and contrast. Exercise E. Now listen to part 2. Part 2.
A lot of other things were different when my parents were growing up. Lithuania was still a part of the Soviet Union, and life was very limited in some ways. My parents dealt with a lot of difficulties. Back then, they didn't have as many choices, for things like what direction your career would take, or traveling abroad. Not so many opportunities. And it was very rare that someone would move away and live somewhere else.
You see the mobility. For example, how they could travel. This is the difference.
That, when my parents were teenagers, they really didn't know much about life outside the Soviet Union, at least firsthand. Most people got married at about the same age and had children shortly afterward. And they usually had one
You
job
see, he's talking about this part. Be careful and write please.
for their whole life. For all those reasons, I would say there was a difference in the worldview the teenagers had then, different from the one I had when I was growing up, which was, of course, during the breakup of the Soviet Union. By the time I was in my teens, a generation gap had pretty much opened up. Teenagers began to develop different tastes in music, the way they dressed. It's not surprising when you think about it. A lot of the food Lithuanians eat now, a lot of the movies they watch, even some of the fashions come from Western Europe or the US. Before, in my parents' generation, it used to be a big deal if somebody left their small village and moved to Vilnius. But today, a lot of my friends have moved away from Lithuania altogether. I have friends living all over Europe, some in the States, and even a friend in New Zealand. That was almost unheard of for my parents' generation. My parents can't understand that kind of independence, why anyone would want to move so far away. So mobility is a huge difference. So some of the changes I'm describing shouldn't be too surprising. Young people are leaving home earlier, they're more likely to move far away, marry later, and choose a career instead of having children right away.
You see, so they are completely different in their marriage and mobility and the work.
I still consider myself close to my parents, but I can't deny that there is a generation gap.
So, he thinks that they are completely different. So you can write them here, the differences. Take a photo and send it to me. Discuss the question. Rima's parents worry about him or their own future. From your experience, why do you think parents worry about their children and the future? For example, why your parents are worried about you, and why they don't do like or don't do like to live from far from you. What is the reason? In what ways is the Wilkins family story similar to your to or different from yours? He talked about career mobility, the culture, the way of changing, listening to music, and the clothes. You see, he talked about them. Is it similar to your family members, your parents, and you, or is it different? How it is different? Explain it completely. Write it here. Take a photo and send it to me. Compare your parents' generation mass, a group of people who are living together with your generation. میگه پدر مادرتون رو با نسل پدر مادرتون رو با نسل خودتون مقایسه کنید. Write your ideas, discuss them with a partner. Okay, my parents' generation, music. What kind of music did they like? For example, almost they like traditional music. In my generation, almost they like pop music, I guess. A style of the clothes, they were more conservative and now they are more free. Their hairstyle, almost they use short style for their hair. And their facial hair, actually they are so up to date. Even the beard and mustache are different. They use long hair, I guess. Attitude toward elders, for example, they respect them very much, but today they don't think about it. Family responsibility was really important in my parents' generation. Today's, I guess, it's important too. Language, idioms, and slangs. I guess most generations have a special idioms, and but I guess their slangs were more meaningful than our. Marriage and childbearing, they married too soon. Actually, they had 4 or 3 children, every family had. But today, no, it's completely different. You can complete this part based on your idea. Take a photo. If there is any other idea, you can write it here. Complete it and send it to me. Discuss these questions. In what ways is your generation the most different from your parents? The most different. What do you like best or respect the most about your parents' generation? What is it? Write your answer, take a photo, and send it to me, please. What contributions do you think your generation will make to the next generation? How do you think the next generation will differ from yours? What do you think? Complete this part. Take a photo and send it to me, please. let's go to this reading. Let's listen. There is a reading part about report an increase in the global population of older people. What will some consequences of demographic shift be? Let's listen, please. Number 7. Listen.
Page 94. Reading. Exercise B. Read the report on the increase in the global population of older people. What will some consequences of this demographic shift be?
Worldwide growth of aging populations.
Um,
The world is facing a huge demographic shift without precedent.
Demographic shift, it means related to the structure of the population. For example, are they young population? Are they old population? And precedent, it means the pattern and the action that was regarded as a guide. For example, in almost all generation, the number of people population was increasing, but based on the demographic shift, based on the structure of the population today, it's going to be changed. Okay, so it means the earlier form of population and it means the change in the population.
For the first time in history, we soon will have more elderly people than children and more extremely old people than ever before. As the population of older people gets larger and larger, key questions arise. Will aging be accompanied by a longer period of good health, social engagement, and productivity, or will it be associated with more illness, disability, and dependency? What we do know is that the more elderly people there are in the population, the more cases of age-related diseases such as heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and cancer there will be. Societies will have to find ways to address this growing need. And the older people get, the higher the prevalence of dementia, especially Alzheimer's disease. An estimated 25 to 30% of people aged 85 or older have dementia and lose their ability to remember.
Okay, this Alzheimer is, for example, forgetting. We do not have the ability to remember things. This is a kind of illness.
Have difficulty reasoning, and undergo some personality changes. Unless new and more effective ways to treat or prevent Alzheimer's disease are found, cases are expected to rise dramatically with the increased aging of the population worldwide.
Dramatically rise very much.
And because most dementia patients eventually need constant care and help with the most basic activities of daily living, more institutions will need to be built for their care, more medications provided for their treatment.
Okay, constant care, it means you should keep after them for a long time.
More caregivers trained to aid them in their daily life.
Caregiver is a person who take after a sick person or weak people. Okay, and for example, nurse can be a caregiver.
What are some of the other social and economic consequences of this demographic shift? Even if they don't have dementia, many of the oldest old lose their ability to live independently, and many require some form of long-term care, which can include nursing homes, assisted living facilities, in-home care, and specialized hospitals.
Okay, nursing home خانه سالمندان.
The significant costs associated with providing this support may need to be borne by families and society. And as fewer and fewer adult children are able or want to stay home to care for older relatives, the shift to institutional care for elders will represent an immense social change, especially
Immense social change. Immense means great. Social change, for example, the change in the way that people think. Actually, they are not going to take care of their parents, so it's a big change.
in those cultures where older generations have traditionally lived with younger ones. And the more residents of developing countries seek jobs in cities or other areas far from where they grew up,
Okay, residents means people who are living or staying in a special place.
The less access to informal family care their older relatives back home will have.
Okay. So look at this. This is a demographic change. Actually, the number of the people who are the increase and the decrease in younger and older people as a percent of worldwide population but decade. You see, in 2000 there was a cross here. Until this time there was an increase, and suddenly it started to change. Understand meaning from the context. The world is facing a huge demographic change. I told you demographic change or the demographic shift is relating to the structure of the population, changing to the structure of the population. The number of people who are born is changing. Without changes or without precedent. Precedent, I told you here, it's a kind of pattern or criterion, an earlier event or action that is regarded as an example. It means in the past we didn't have such kind of thing. We soon will have more elderly people. Elderly people, it means old people. And the other people get, the higher the prevalence of dementia. Prevalence شیوعه یه چیزی رواج داشتن یه چیزی شیوع. Many of the oldest of early population lose their ability to live independently. It means they lose the ability to live alone because they need help. They need to be cared. And many require some form of long-term care. It means for a long term they need people to take after them. They need to be fed, cleaned. Institutional care for the elderly would represent an immense social task. Immense, it means very much. Institutional care, I told you, for example, a nursing home, خانه سالمندان, for example. Choose the best answer about the future based on the information in the report. Who will pay for long-term care of people can no longer live independent? Who will pay? Stay-at-home adults, families and society, older people themselves. Which one of them do you think? Answer, tick the answer, please. Based on the text, why will fewer old people be able to get informal home care? Because their younger relatives may have moved elsewhere, because they will be more institutional care available for them, and because they will seek work. Because their relatives are not there with them. They do not live together. A is the best answer. And with a partner, discuss these statements and check those you think are true about care of elderly in your country. Most elderly people are adequately cared for. If it is right, you can tick. If it is wrong, you can cross. The way the elderly are cared for has been changing. The elderly usually live with younger family. The elderly usually live in their own homes. What do you think? If there is any other thing, you can add it here. Tick or cross the answers. Take a photo and send it. With a partner, discuss the challenges each person is facing and recommend a solution. For example, you see there are three problems. You should write your idea about them. Take a photo and send it to me. Susanna is divorced and has three young daughters. Her mother died years ago, and her 75-year-old father can no longer take care of himself and often forgets things. She worries that he might hurt. David and his wife have two children and live in a small two-bedroom apartment. They both work long hours to make ends meet. Make ends meet, it means find amount of money enough money to pay for essential things and save money. Okay, they try to save money. David's mother is just turned 80 and lives alone. David is concerned about his mother's well-being. What do you think? What should they do? based on their problems. Peter's parents, who live in another city, are in their 90s. They continue to have a full social life and they still enjoy traveling with organized tours. But they are not as strong as they used to be and need help with cooking and cleaning. What's your idea? How should they help their parents and try to improve their life? Write your answer, take a photo, and send it to me. Let's study the rules. Note two common errors that writers often make in order to join the sentences. Run-on sentences, connecting sentences or independent clauses without using punctuation. My grandmother was strict when my mom, however, my mom isn't as strict at me. ببینید اینجا این جمله هستش که نقطه گذاری درستی نداره، بهش میگیم run out sentence. actually همینجوری نوشته دیگه، قبل از however باید بذاریم. من براتون اینجوری توضیح بدم. بیاین تو این قسمت نگاه کنیم، تو قبل از however حتما نقطه بذاریم، بعدش کاما. My grandmother was strict with my mom. میگه مادر بزرگم به مادرم سخت میگرفت. نقطه جمله رو تموم میکنیم، بعد مینویسیم however حتما کپیتال باشه، یعنی با حرف بزرگ شروع بشه، بعد کاما باید داشته باشیم اینجا و بقیه جمله. میگه مادر بزرگم به مادرم سخت میگرفت ولی با این وجود مادرم به من سخت نمیگیره. My dad and I used to have lots of arguments. خیلی با هم بحث میکنیم. نقطه. Now we get along great. دوتا جمله رو از هم جدا کنم. میگه ولی الان با هم خوبه رفتارمون. با هم کنار میایم. پس دوتا جمله رو به وسیله نقطه از هم جدا کرده. اینا خیلی مهمه برای رایتینگتون. My grandmother was strict with my mom. میگه مادر بزرگم به مادرم سخت میگیره. اومده سمیکالن استفاده کرده. سمیکالن یعنی که نقطه کاما، نقطه ویرگول گذاشته. میگه یه نقطه ویرگول بزنید، دوتا جمله مربوط به هم رو هم متصل کنید. میگه مادر بزرگم به مادرم سخت میگیره اما مادرم به من سخت نمیگیره. دیدید اینجا با however چجوری وصلش کردیم؟ یه نقطه قبل از however رو گذاشتم، بعد کاما. میگه اگر however نخواستین استفاده کنید یه نقطه ویرگول بذارید، همون جمله رو به هم وصل کنید. My dad and I used to have lots of arguments. Now we get along great. اینجا میگه به جای نقطه هم میتونید از سمیکالن استفاده کنید، نقطه ویرگول بذارید. My grandmother was strict with my mom, but my mom is not at all strict with me. میگه مادر بزرگم به مادرم سخت میگرفت اما، پس از اما میتونیم استفاده کنیم، قبلش یک کاما بذاریم، بعد اما رو بنویسیم، جمله بعد رو با همون معنی و هیچ تغییر معنیش هم تغییر نمیکنه. اینا آپشن هایی هست که میتونید به این نحو جملات به هم مربوط و اما جدا از هم رو به هم متصل کنید. My dad and I used to have lots of arguments, but now we get along great. پدرم و من با هم دیگه بحث میکردیم خیلی، اما قبلش یک کاما گذاشته، بعد but now we get along great. الان با هم خوب کنار میایم، یه فول استاپ هم آخرشون میذاریم. Older people will use a lot of social resources in future. They will require caregivers and special institutions. الان برای نسل ما این دوتا جمله رو میتونیم با نقطه به هم دیگه وصل کنیم. یه نقطه بذاریم، دوتا جمله متفاوت رو پشت سر هم بیاریم، یا میتونیم از however هم استفاده کنیم، یه نقطه however بذاریم. In the future there will be many more people in the oldest demographic. However ببین الان however رو اشتباه آورده. چرا اشتباه آورده؟ گفتم نقطه بعد کپیتال، حرف بزرگ شروع. یه نقطه بذاریم بعد یه حرف اچ هم به صورت بزرگ نیست. I worry about my grandparents. They both have diabetes for many years. I worry about my grandparents. خب یه نقطه بذاریم دیگه، دو تا جمله رو از هم جدا میکنیم. یه نقطه بذاریم، یه سمیکالن بذاریم، دو تا جمله دیگه پشت سر هم که نمیتونیم باید و یه نحوی اینا رو به هم دیگه متصل کنیم و از هم جداشون کنیم، نحوی چینش جملاتمون مشخص باشه. It's very difficult for my mother to stay home to care my grandfather, my great grandfather. نقطه، میتونیم نقطه بذاریم، میتونیم سمیکالن بذاریم، میتونیم کاما و بات بذاریم. but he needs care because he has Alzheimer's disease. Okay, on a separate sheet of paper, rewrite the paragraph. So this is a paragraph. I explain it in this part and I explain it this part. Be careful. For example, my husband and I don't know what to do with our teenage daughter Bess. Bess always been a bit rebellious. however الان ببینید however رو اشتباه استفاده کرد. گفتم however یه نقطه قبلش بعدش H capital S بزرگ. پس اینو شما درست کنید. نکاتش رو دقت کنید. Make it correct. Take a photo and send it to me please. Listen to conversation about generational issues. Then listen to each conversation again and complete. So we are going to listen. Let's listen. Wait a minute, I should find it.
It's about generational issues. Conversation 1.
Just look at this email from Jordan's English teacher. It says Jordan's missing his last 2 book reports and his grades are going downhill.
No way. Every time I see him in front of the computer, he tells me he's doing homework.
He's probably spending hours on the internet wasting time. That's it. No more internet until his grades get better at school. Let's go talk to him together.
Okay. Has been spending less and less time on more and more time on the internet. So it's A.
Conversation 2.
I'm really getting worried about Sandy. I don't know what to do.
Sandy? She's such a good kid. What's up?
Well, ever since she got her driver's license last month, she's been staying out later and later.
So the later Sandy stayed out.
Night, she didn't get home until after 11. She's no baby, but I worry about her. I'm losing sleep.
Well, you need your sleep. Why don't you give her a curfew? Tell her if she gets in 1 minute late, she's grounded.
Conversation 3.
Hey, Jill. What's up?
I'm grounded. I can't go to the concert.
What did you do?
Absolutely nothing. My dad told me to take off all my makeup before I went to school, and I told him he was being ridiculous.
You told him that?
Yeah, he's just so annoying. Next time he tells me I can't wear makeup, I think I'll get a tattoo. That'll show him.
Okay, so she's going to be more rebellious.
Conversation 4.
You know, Jen, Mom and Dad aren't that bad. Now that I think back on how much trouble we gave them, I appreciate them more.
Me too. I used to think they were so dumb, but it turns out they are pretty smart. You know, I hope when I have kids, I'll be as smart about kids as Mom and Dad.
So the smarter they become. Write adjective best describe the behavior in each statement. Mark's parents don't allow him to watch more than 2 hours of TV every day, but most of his parents can watch as much as they want. He feels that his parents are too overprotective, for example. Karen has a closet full of expensive clothes, yet she always complains about not having anything to wear. Her parents usually buy her whatever she wants. A lot of people think Karen is spoiled. This is based on the adjectives that we studied last session. Complete this part, take a photo and send it to me, please. Read the sentence. If the underlined word is correct, incorrect part of the sentence. If the underlined word is incorrect part of the sentence, it's correct. اگر اشتباهه درستش کنید. Teenagers were given a lot of responsibility when I was young. That's right. I think teenagers today lack the maturity to make decisions for themselves. Maturity. The main reason young people are rebellious today is selfishness. That's right. If kids today were taught about courtesy, they would be better behaved. There was no question that teenagers today demand more independency than they lived 50 years ago. It's important for parents to be involved in their children's development. Young people have a lot more mobility than they did. It seems like there is a lot more among teenagers today, rebelliousness, for example. Okay, complete this part, take a photo and send it to me. Um, that's enough. Have a nice time and bye.